For years, millions were poured into planting trees across Australia's highlands, yet forests kept vanishing and erosion worsened. The shocking truth is that survival rates plummeted and maintenance costs spiraled out of control. If tree planting is failing on this scale, how do entire forests come back without it? The answer changes everything you thought you knew about restoration. Rows of dead seedlings stretch across bare slopes, their plastic guards toppled and faded in the sun. In paddocks once dotted with hopeful green, only hollow tubes and brittle sticks remain. Deep cracks cut through the soil, tracing the path of water that now rushes unchecked, carving gullies where roots never took hold. Erosion scars widen each season, carrying precious topsoil downstream and leaving behind a landscape stripped of its living skin. Where teams once planted thousands of tube stock, survival has collapsed. Frosts bite hard in winter, and summer droughts finish what little growth survived. Without constant watering and protection, young trees wither, unable to compete with thickets of invasive grass or withstand the trampling of stray livestock. In some sites, less than a third of planted trees make it through the first few years. Maintenance crews return again and again, patching fences, replanting, replacing guards, each intervention more costly than the last, each season ending with more loss than gain. The promise of quick recovery has faded. Instead, the ground grows emptier, the air quieter, and the costs keep rising. These failures are not isolated. Across the highlands, reports echo the same story. Erosion outpaces repair, and forests are not coming back. The evidence is written into the land itself: bare earth, collapsed plantings, and the silent retreat of native life. Every return to the field brought another invoice. Fences that were meant to last a decade needed patching after every storm. Protective guards cracked in the sun or vanished in the wind. Crews spent weeks hauling water to exposed slopes, only to watch seedlings shrivel in the next dry spell. As the seasons wore on, the cost of keeping even a fraction of those plantings alive kept climbing. Agencies found themselves locked in a cycle, pouring funds into maintenance, replanting, and repairs, while the landscape continued to unravel beneath their feet. Each failed planting meant more labor, more materials, and more time spent fighting the same problems. The lead ecologist, who had once championed large-scale planting, began to question the wisdom of this approach. She recalls that they were spending more on keeping seedlings alive than on restoring the land itself. It felt like they were treating the symptoms, not the cause. The financial strain was matched by ecological frustration. Despite all the effort, native vegetation struggled to re-establish, and erosion only accelerated. Reports from other highland projects echoed the same concerns: high input costs, low returns, and landscapes that grew emptier with every failed attempt. The pressure to show results, measured in trees planted, not trees grown, kept agencies committed to a system that demanded constant intervention. But the numbers on the ground told a different story. The land wasn't healing. Instead, the cost of trying to force recovery was becoming unsustainable. This realization pushed the team to search for a method that worked with, rather than against, the land's own processes. Assisted natural regeneration, ANR, takes a different path from conventional tree planting. Instead of filling bare ground with nursery-grown seedlings, the project team turns their attention to the living potential already present in the landscape. The core idea is simple: remove the obstacles that prevent native vegetation from returning on its own. ANR begins with protection, installing fences or managing access to keep out grazing animals and reduce trampling. By excluding livestock and feral herbivores, native seedlings and resprouting plants gain a chance to establish without being eaten or crushed. Next comes the targeted removal of weeds and invasive grasses. Dense thickets of exotics often choke out native seedlings and saplings, competing for light, water, and nutrients. The team uses a mix of manual clearing, selective herbicide application, and sometimes controlled grazing to reduce this pressure. This creates space and resources for native plants to emerge from the soil seed bank, or resprout from rootstocks and lignotubers hidden just below the surface. In some sites, minor hydrological interventions are introduced. Simple structures like contour banks, water ponds, or strategically placed logs slow the flow of water across slopes, helping to trap sediment, reduce erosion, and increase soil moisture. These tweaks improve the conditions for natural regeneration, especially in landscapes where past clearing or overgrazing has left the soil exposed and vulnerable. Throughout, the project team relies on careful observation and adaptive management. They monitor which species are returning, adjust weed control as needed, and watch for signs of soil recovery like increased litter, better infiltration, and the return of soil fauna. The goal is not to force a particular outcome, but to guide the recovery process by removing barriers and letting native ecosystems reassemble themselves. ANR at its heart is about working with nature's own systems, amplifying what the land is already trying to do. On the first gully where assisted natural regeneration was trialed, the changes were measured in hard numbers, not just hopeful observation. At the start, a survey rod dropped straight down nearly 2 meters before hitting the gully floor. 18% of the surface held living cover, patches of native grass clinging to eroded banks, surrounded by bare soil. Infiltration tests showed water sinking into the earth at just 8 millimeters per hour, barely enough to soak a light rain. After 3 years of protection and targeted management, the same gully told a different story. The deepest point now measured only 60 centimeters, a third of its former depth. Ground cover readings reached 72%, dominated by native species that had returned from the seed bank and neighboring patches. Infiltration rates more than doubled, climbing to 20 millimeters per hour. Rain that once raced off bare earth now soaked in, feeding roots and slowing erosion. The field manager, standing at the edge of the old incision, points to the new carpet of green. "We didn't plant a single tree here," he says. "All we did was keep the stock out, knock back the weeds, and let nature take over." The numbers are clear: less gully erosion, more living cover, and water moving back into the soil. For the team, these results were not just encouraging, they were undeniable proof that working with natural processes could restore a landscape faster and more reliably than any planting campaign. The data set the stage for what mattered most, what these changes meant for the people who live and work on this land. For one Highland family, the changes brought by assisted natural regeneration are measured in everyday life. Before the project, tending to young trees meant hours each week spent hauling water, replacing dead seedlings and patching up fences, time that pulled them away from the rest of the farm. Now, with nature doing most of the work, that weekly commitment has dropped from 10 hours to just 2. The family's annual spending on seedlings and guards, which once topped $1,200, has nearly disappeared. Instead, new opportunities have taken root. Native grasses and shrubs provide better forage for livestock, while mature wattles and eucalypts offer a steady supply of firewood. The family has even begun collecting native seeds from regenerating trees, earning around $300 a month, an income stream that simply didn't exist before. For them, restoration isn't just about the land recovering. It means more time together, less strain on the budget, and a future that feels both productive and secure. Conventional tree planting has always come with a steep price tag. In the Highlands, planting and maintaining tube stock can cost up to $8,500 per hectare. Even then, survival rates hover around 27%, with most seedlings failing to establish. Assisted natural regeneration, by contrast, brings the cost down to about $2,400 per hectare. That difference isn't just a line in a budget, it's a shift in priorities. Instead of pouring money into nursery stock and plastic guards, resources go toward protecting what is already there and managing the land with care. For guidance, the team turns to indigenous custodians, whose knowledge of fire, seasonality, and seed cycles shapes every intervention. Cool burns are timed not by the calendar, but by the flowering of native grasses or the return of certain birds. These practices are rooted in long stewardship and respect for the land's rhythms. The result is a system that costs less, fits the country, and works with nature, not against it. Australia's restored highlands now prove that letting nature lead can rebuild forests and futures faster than human hands alone. As global restoration spending tops $18 billion a year, the lesson is clear. Sometimes the simplest intervention is trust. Nature's resilience is waiting if we let it. What do you think?